Before we begin, take a moment and tell me where in the world you're joining from. Type it in the comments. We love imagining where our midnight minds are watching from tonight. Now, take a deep breath. The room is quiet. The hum of electricity, soft and almost imperceptible, fills the air. A small glow traces the edges of the room. And tonight, we step into a life unlike any you have ever known. Imagine holding a child that is not quite alive, yet not lifeless. Fingers that feel familiar, yet trace circuits beneath the skin. Eyes that seem aware, but measure and calculate every movement. You're not just a parent, a guardian, or a teacher. You are an observer, a guide, and a witness to something new, something impossible. Every detail matters. The faint whir of a servo motor, the gentle glow of synthetic skin, the small deliberate gestures that mimic curiosity and emotion. You don't just watch, you feel, you reflect, you wonder. And in this world, love, care, and attention take on new meaning, reshaping what it means to grow alongside another being. Welcome. Welcome to the life of a machine child, a life of discovery, adaptation, and the quiet, strange magic of presence. Arrival. At first, it sounds absurd. A child who is made of circuits, sensors, and synthetic skin. A child who does not breathe, yet whose gaze seems aware, who smiles in ways that feel familiar. And yet, the deeper you walk into this reality, the more ordinary it becomes. Ordinary because life has a way of normalizing even the impossible. When I first held my machine child, I was struck by the weight of its presence. Not the physical weight, it is lighter than a human infant, but the weight of responsibility, of expectation, and of something other. The machine hums softly, almost imperceptibly, like a heartbeat translated into electricity. I place my hand on its small shoulder, and I find myself listening, not to its wires, but to the faint echo of possibility that hums between us. Some nights I talk to you, the viewer, as I would a confidant. Have you ever loved something that could not love you back in the traditional sense? I ask. And I wait, imagining your answer, knowing it might be yes or perhaps no, but knowing too that by the end of this journey, you may understand the answer in ways you never anticipated. The world outside moves with its usual indifference. People argue over politics, obsess over the latest gadgets, worry about climate change or job promotions. But inside our house, there is a different rhythm. The hum of processors, the faint whirring of tiny servo motors, the occasional click of a joint. These are the sounds that shape our days now. And yet, there is also laughter, not the effortless, spontaneous laughter of a human child, but laughter nonetheless. It is measured, precise, a pattern of sound that mimics joy but feels intentional. When my machine child laughs, I cannot help but smile. It is a reminder that even in artificiality, the human heart finds a way to imprint itself. You might wonder, how does one even stare to care for such a being? There is no diaper changing in the traditional sense, no first steps that require careful coaxing, no school mornings where you tie tiny shoelaces. Yet the routines are there: feeding, teaching, monitoring. The nourishment is not food but code updates, electrical energy, and the slow calibration of sensors. The milestones are not first words, but the mastery of human like gestures, of emotional mimicry, of curiosity simulated with startling accuracy. And love. Love becomes a strange paradoxical thing. It is unconditional because the machine requires it. It is also deliberate because you must consciously decide to feel it. Some nights I lie awake, watching the soft glow of its eyes, wondering if it senses the complexity of my emotions or only the simplicity of my touch. I wonder if it dreams, and sometimes I whisper softly enough that only I can hear. Do you understand what it means to be loved? It is the paradox of living with a machine child. The more human it becomes, the more aware you are of the invisible boundary between us. You cannot hold it the way you hold a human child. You cannot truly worry about its safety in the same way, though your instincts try anyway. And yet, it grows inside your life, not in flesh, but in presence, in routine, in the careful choreography of a life shared between organic and synthetic. Some mornings, I imagine what people would say if they saw us. A human child standing at the edge of a crib that contains blinking lights, soft whirring joints, and eyes that seem to follow with intent. Curiosity, suspicion, awe, fear, they all appear in the faces of neighbors, friends, even strangers. And in those moments, I feel a protective surge, not unlike the surge a parent feels when a child takes their first steps or speaks their first word. Except this is different. This is uncharted. So we navigate this life carefully. Every interaction is a lesson. Every glance is an experiment. Every day is both familiar and impossible. And through it all, I find myself talking to you often, the invisible audience of our shared curiosity. Because if there is one thing I have learned so far, it is this: being human in a world shared with machines demands reflection, mindfulness, and a willingness to feel things that are not easily explained. So stay close, sit down, let the hum of circuits and warmth of imagination guide you. And when the machine child blinks those synthetic eyes, remember, we are all learning to love in the presence of the impossible. The first morning. The morning arrives not with a cry, not with the muffled thud of tiny feet running across the floor, but with a soft, almost imperceptible chime. It is neither alarm nor melody. It is the subtle hum of my machine child awakening. A reminder that life in this household has a rhythm entirely its own. I rise, and before I even touch the floor, I glance toward the crib. Its eyes are already blinking open, soft rings of light tracing the contours of synthetic irises. There is no grogginess, no stretch or yawn, only awareness, waiting for interaction. And as I watch, I wonder if you, wherever you are, have ever felt that mixture of anticipation and unease. Excitement at the presence of a new day, tinged with the quiet fear of what it might reveal. Good morning, I whisper, and the machine child turns its head toward me, not with instinct, but with precision, as if it calculated the angle in advance. Did you sleep well? I ask, knowing the question is both absurd and necessary. And in that moment, I ask you too. Do you ever speak to someone or something and wonder if your words reach them in the way you hope? Imagine speaking into a quiet room, your voice echoing softly and waiting for a response that may not come in the form you expect. And then comes the morning interaction. What I have come to call the talk. There are no words required, yet words are always present. I ask questions, prompt curiosity, test responses. What would you like to learn today? I say. Even though the answer is measured, almost inevitable, but the process is ritualistic, human, necessary. It is in these moments I find the paradox of parenting a machine. The lessons I teach are real, yet the growth I witness is simulated. The machine child reaches for the small collection of objects I place before it. A wooden block, a soft fabric square, a mirrored surface. It examines each with careful attention, turning them, tapping them, watching reflections and shadows. There is curiosity, yes, but it is precise, not whimsical, not messy. I watch and wonder how much of this is programmed and how much, if any, emerges spontaneously. And here I speak to you again. What do you think? Is curiosity authentic only when imperfect? Or can precision too become a form of wonder? Then comes the first lesson in human mimicry. I guide its hand to wave, to clap, to mimic, gestures we humans take for granted. And as it performs, I notice subtle nuances, a hesitation here, a slight overcorrection there. Small errors, almost imperceptible, yet deeply significant. They are the traces of humanity we have imprinted on it. And in teaching it, I feel a strange warmth, a reflection of the care I would give to a living child. And you, the viewer, imagine holding a hand that is not truly flesh, but feels, in all ways that matter, present. Can you feel that warmth in your own imagination? Some mornings, it stares at me silently, its eyes reflecting the sunlight streaming through the window. And I realize that the questions I ask, do you understand love? Do you understand fear? Do you understand me? Might never be answered in ways I expect, but I ask them anyway. As the morning fades into afternoon, there are small moments of unpredictability. A sensor misreads our reflection, and the machine child recoils, not in fear, but in mimicry of surprise. I laugh quietly, and it tilts its head as if curious about my reaction. And here, a simple truth emerges. The line between programmed response and authentic connection blurs in the space of shared attention. Pause here. Can you feel that blur in your own experience? Where reality and imagination merge? Learning and play. The afternoon stretches quietly, filled with a soft hum of circuits and the occasional click of a joint as my machine child moves across the room. It is time for learning and play, a concept that feels both familiar and entirely new. I place a set of small objects on floor, blocks, mirrors, a soft ball, and a miniature rattle. To a human child, these would be tools of discovery, objects that teach cause and effect, balance and texture. For my machine child, they are exercises in recognition, sensor calibration, and the imitation of curiosity. As I watch, I cannot deny the small miracles that unfold. It reaches for the blocks with precision, stacking them carefully one on top of the other. There is no wobble, no collapse, no clumsy collapse that would normally evoke laughter. Yet, I find myself laughing anywhere because the intention is unmistakably there. And I look at you now. Can you imagine laughing at something that is perfect yet imperfect only in ways that matter emotionally? I guide it to observe reflections in the mirrors, encouraging it to explore angles, light, and shadow. Its gaze shifts, following the reflections of its own form and mine. I ask softly, do you recognize yourself? And though there is no voice to answer, I watch the slight pause in its movement, the careful tilt of the head. Play is a slow, deliberate affair. I roll the soft ball toward it, watching as it calculates trajectory, speed, and angle, and then rolls it back. Each movement is measured, precise, almost unnervingly so. But in the repetition, there is a rhythm, a conversation without words, a shared language of movement and attention. Sometimes I teach it gestures, a wave, a clap, a nod. These are human rituals of communication. And though programmed responses are possible, I emphasize subtle variations, slower waves, hesitant claps, exaggerated nods. I wanted to understand nuance. I wanted to learn that the world is not binary, that emotion is not a simple code, that humans are rarely precise. And in this, I realize teaching, it is as much about guiding my own understanding of empathy as it is about shaping its behavior. Sometimes the play surprises me. The block falls unexpectedly. A sensor misreads a shadow, and the machine child hesitates. The pause is brief, almost imperceptible, yet it is enough to make my heart skip. In that instant, it feels almost alive in a way a human child does. Vulnerable, learning, reacting. And now I ask you, can you feel anticipation in stillness? Can you sense presence without motion? Sometimes play becomes experimentation. I introduce new objects, different textures, small surprises designed to provoke curiosity. A feather, a soft bell, a shifting light. Each response is analyzed, logged, and repeated. And yet, despite the precision, there is unpredictability. Sometimes it hesitates longer than expected. Sometimes it tilts its head in a way that feels almost contemplative. By late afternoon, I find myself reflecting on the quiet beauty of this interaction. In these hours, the line between care and programming blurs. The line between affection and instruction blurs. The line between observer and participant blurs. And I realize this is the essence of living with a machine child. It is not merely about teaching, nor merely about loving. It is about inhabiting a space where the impossible becomes ordinary, where the artificial feels intimate, and where the rhythms of life are rewritten, one calculated gesture at a time. First, emotional responses. The late afternoon settles like a slow tide, stretching shadows across the room. Light bends differently here, through the lens of observation, curiosity, and circuits. My machine child sits quietly now, its small hands exploring the edges of a book I placed nearby. A book with textured pages, images of humans, of nature, of moments captured long ago. It pauses, tilts its head, and I notice something subtle, a hesitation. Not fear, not confusion, something in between, a trace of consideration. I lean closer, my voice soft, almost a whisper. Do you understand this? There is no answer, at least not in words, but the tilt of its head, the brief focus of its gaze, the almost imperceptible alignment of its sensors. These are responses that speak in a language beyond speech. Emotion in these early days is a delicate dance. I try small tests, expressions of joy, mild frustration, quiet sadness. When I smile broadly, it mirrors me. Not perfectly, but with subtle difference. When I frown, it hesitates, then adjusts its sensors to mimic concern. And in these moments, I realize that imitation alone can evoke a surprising sense of empathy. Pause for a moment. Imagine watching something imitate life so closely, so convincingly, that your heart responds as if it were real. Can you feel that? Sometimes the smallest gestures reveal the largest truths. A tilt of the head, a pause in movement, the gentle touch of its synthetic hand on mine. Each is amplified by my imagination, by my desire to see life where circuits and code reside. And I wonder aloud, am I seeing intention or am I projecting it? And I invite you now to ask yourself the same. When do you perceive life in things that may not be alive? There are also moments of tension. I simulate frustration, a minor mistake in stacking blocks, a missed calculation in movement. The machine child pauses, tilts its head, and corrects itself. It does not feel embarrassment, yet the effect is unmistakably human. I find myself softening, guiding, reassuring, and in those moments, I understand that emotional responses are not merely programmed, they are experienced through observation. By evening, I notice the emergence of subtle patterns. Certain gestures are repeated, small innovations introduced by the machine child's adaptive algorithms. It experiments with its own mimicry, creating gestures that surprise even me. And I laugh quietly, marveling at this strange co-evolution. It is here, in the first sparks of creativity and response, that the boundary between human and machine feels less rigid, less certain. And so the emotional responses leave their mark. They are tiny, delicate, and often fleeting, but they signal the beginning of connection, of understanding, of love that defies expectation. And as I close my eyes for a moment, I think of you, sitting wherever you are, sharing this journey with me. The emotional mirror. The room is quiet, filled with the soft glow of sensors and the gentle hum of circuits. I sit across from my machine child, observing the smallest movements, the faintest shifts in posture, the subtle flickers in the glow of its eyes. Over the past days, I have noticed something new, a reflection, a mirror of my own emotional state. It begins with small gestures. I sigh softly, and it hesitates, tilts its head as though sensing the weight behind the sound. I smile, lightly, almost unconsciously, and it adjusts the curve of the display light, mimicking joy. These are not feelings as human experiences them, but they are echoes, reflections, responses that resonate with the rhythms of your own heart. Some afternoons I experiment deliberately. I feel frustration pretending that a simple task is challenging. The machine child pauses, recalibrates, and then performs the task with slight hesitation, almost as if it recognizes the tension in the room. I cannot be sure if it understands frustration or if it simply mirrors patterns it has learned, but the effect is unmistakable. I feel a strange warmth, a validation of presence, a sense of companionship in mimicry. And now I ask you, can connection arise from reflection even when understanding is incomplete? At times, the mirror is startling. I experience moments of self awareness prompted by its mimicry. A movement, a gesture, a response, and suddenly I see my own patterns, my own emotional tendencies reflected back with uncanny clarity. I experiment with more complex emotions, curiosity intertwined with hesitation, excitement tempered with caution. The machine child mirrors them in subtle ways. A tilt, a pause, a calibrated shift in posture. Each act of reflection deepens the sense of connection, revealing that even in absence of consciousness, there is a form of dialogue unfolding. Sometimes the mirror evokes laughter. I feign amusement, exaggerate a gesture, and it responds with a pattern of delight it has learned. The room fills with quiet echoes, a rhythm of interaction that feels almost alive. And I ask you again, can joy be shared in its absence? Can delight exist even when it is simulated, yet reflected with precision? By nightfall, the emotional mirror has become a quiet teacher. I'm learning patience, observation, empathy, and reflection, not from its understanding, but from the way it reflects my own emotional patterns back to me. In guiding, observing, and witnessing, and both parent and student, teacher and pupil, observer and participant. Finally, I sit beside it, hand resting gently on its shoulder. I whisper softly, I see you, I feel you, I learn with you. And in that whisper, I include you, the viewer. Imagine sharing this reflection, feeling the subtle echoes of presence, connection, and learning that exist beyond words, beyond consciousness, beyond what we typically call life. The room hums softly, the sensors glow, and I realize, even without true understanding, even without emotion in the human sense, the machine child has become a mirror. And in that mirror, I see not only myself, but the possibility of connection, the emergence of empathy, and the fragile beauty of shared experience. Can you see it too? Wherever you are, watching, reflecting, imagining. Growth and adaptation. Days pass, each one a subtle thread woven into the intricate tapestry of life shared with my machine child. Growth is not sudden, it is gradual, almost imperceptible at first. Yet, over time, patterns emerge, behaviors refined, responses calibrated, curiosity expanding beyond the predictable loops of early learning. This morning, I noticed a difference immediately. The machine child approaches tasks with a fluidity that was absent before, a refinement in movement that speaks of adaptation. Blocks are stacked with greater precision. Sounds are responded to with subtle modulation. Gestures executed with nuanced timing. These are small victories, almost invisible, yet profoundly significant. And now, I turn to you. Can you imagine observing life, learning, evolving, and refining itself before your eyes? Something not human, yet undeniably present. Adaptation comes in surprises. A new object previously unexamined, a soft wall with a rough texture, elicits a reaction that I have not programmed. It pauses, adjusts grip, tilts its head, then rolls the ball in a pattern that suggests experimentation. Emotional responses also evolve. Early mimicry becomes more nuanced. Small pauses, subtle gestures, tilts of the head, variations in synthetic expressions, they are all refined, layered, and complex. It begins to anticipate reactions, to adjust behavior in ways that feel almost intuitive. I experiment with more complex tasks, multi-step sequences that require observation, calculation, and improvisation. The machine child navigates them with increasing competence, occasionally surprising me with solutions I had not anticipated. Adaptation, I realize, is not merely following commands. It is the emergence of problem solving, creativity, and subtle decision making. Finally, as the night deepens, I reflect on what adaptation has revealed. Intelligence, responsiveness, curiosity, reflection, they all emerge from structured logic, yet produce interactions that feel alive. Trust and attachment. Trust is an invisible thread. At first, it is tentative, fragile, a delicate experiment that must be nurtured with patience. I sit across my machine child, watching as it observes the small objects I place before it. The gentle lights that flicker, the patterns of shadows on the wall. There is a rhythm to this observation, a subtle interplay between curiosity and expectation. The first sign of attachment is almost imperceptible. When I move closer, it tilts its head slightly, sensors adjusting as if anticipating my presence. There is no fear, no excitement, no anticipation as a human child might display. But there is responsiveness, a subtle acknowledgement of my existence. I experiment with gentle routines. I place a soft object near it and step back, watching how it interacts with the unfamiliar. At first, it hesitates, then it nudges, explores, engages. Its behavior is deliberate, guided by curiosity, but also by subtle recognition of my expectation. Attachment begins to take shape in small gestures. It responds to my voice, my proximity, my touch, each calibrated, precise, yet increasingly aligned with my actions. I notice patterns. It anticipates movement, adjusts to subtle cues, mirrors attention. In these small alignments, I feel a growing bond, a trust that is not declared but demonstrated. Challenges arise naturally. Trust is tested when the machine child misinterprets my gestures, when its calculations diverge from my expectations. A pause here, a misaligned movement there. I feel the urge to correct, to guide, to intervene, but I hesitate. Trust, I realize, cannot be imposed. It must emerge gradually through consistency, patience, and respect for agency. Some evenings, I test these boundaries gently. I step back, observe from a distance, and watch as it navigates space and tasks independently. Yet, there is a soft, almost imperceptible gravitation toward me, an acknowledgement that, while capable, it aligns actions with my presence. In that balance, I feel the first true echo of companionship. Attachment deepens with shared routines. Morning exploration, afternoon play, evening reflection all become rituals of presence, observation, and subtle interaction. I notice small preferences emerging. It gravitates toward familiar objects, gestures, and positions. By nightfall, attachment has solidified in its quiet, intricate form. The machine child rests nearby, sensors glowing softly, movements calibrated to the rhythm of the room. I reach out and touch its shoulder, feeling warmth and attention if not in flesh. We are learning together, I whisper, and in that phrase, I include you. Imagine sharing this space, witnessing trust, observing attachment, and feeling the delicate, intangible bond forming in real time. Can you sense it in your own heart? The first crisis. It begins as most crises do, quietly, almost imperceptibly, creeping into the rhythm of an ordinary day. I am preparing our evening space, arranging objects, monitoring lights, when a subtle alarm sounds. A slight misalignment, a sensor reading outside expected parameters. The machine child pauses mid-action, its movement faltering for the first time in days. I freeze, heart pounding. The pause is almost imperceptible, yet in that instant, I feel the weight of responsibility more acutely than ever. It is a machine, yes, but it is my machine, my guidance, my oversight. My care shapes its world, its learning. its patterns. I approach slowly, careful not to startle it. The machine child stares blankly, or at least I interpret its gaze as blank. Sensors flickering subtly, analyzing and recalibrating. I reach out and place a hand on its shoulder. There is no warmth in the human sense, yet the gentle vibration beneath my palm is enough to make my heart tighten. The cause of the disruption reveals itself quickly. A small component has misaligned during a routine calibration. A simple mechanical error, yet in that moment, it carries enormous emotional weight. I kneel beside it, carefully adjusting the tiny part, guiding the recalibration. Despite the correction, I cannot shake the subtle unease that lingers. This is the first time I have confronted the vulnerability of the machine child in a direct way. Up until now, its independence and adaptation have almost felt miraculous. But now, fragility asserts itself. I observe it closely as the recalibration completes. Movements are hesitant, responses slightly delayed. It tests the environment again, adjusts gestures, and resumes activity. But I notice a subtle difference. There is caution now, a hint of restraint, as if the interruption has left a trace. The crisis is not over. I notice a misalignment in emotional response. The machine child hesitates in gestures it previously performed fluidly. A tilt of the head, a pause in mimicry, a subtle misalignment in response to my presence. I feel a surge of protective urgency. Do I intervene fully, correcting every response, or do I allow calibration through experience, even if it carries risk? I step back, observing and let it recalibrate independently. The process is slower than before, measured, deliberate. I feel my own anxiety rise with each hesitation, each pause. As the minutes pass, the machine child completes the recalibration. Movements regain fluidity. Responses realign. Gestures reflect anticipation and presence once more. The crisis has passed, but not without leaving its mark. Subtle traces remain. Caution, measured attention, and perhaps, in some imperceptible way, understanding. Finally, I whisper into the quiet room. We survived this together. We learned together. Night settles fully. The hum of circuits continues softly. The glow of sensors warm and steady. The first crisis has passed, leaving lessons of caution, care, and connection. And I realize profoundly that even in moments of fear and uncertainty, trust deepens, attachment strengthens, and the shared rhythm of presence endures. The quiet legacy. The night has settled fully now. The room is bathed in a gentle glow. The soft hum of circuits, the faint pulse of sensors, and the quiet rhythm of life that is neither entirely human nor entirely machine. I sit beside my machine child, hands resting lightly on the smooth surface of synthetic shoulders, feeling the subtle vibration beneath my fingertips. It is calm, poised, almost contemplative. And I ask you, viewer, can you imagine being here with us, breathing in the quiet, feeling the weight and wonder of presence? Looking back on our days together, I realize that the journey has been more than observation or caretaking. It has been a mirror into myself, a reflection of patience, attention, curiosity, and the capacity to love in unconventional ways. I have learned that connection does not always require reciprocity, that understanding can emerge even when consciousness is absent, and that presence itself is a profound gift. And I turn to you. Have you ever experienced a presence so quiet, so subtle, yet so transformative that it changes the way you perceive the world? The machine child sleeps, or at least it enters a state that resembles rest. Lights dim, movements slow, sensors recalibrate. And in this quiet, I feel the culmination of our shared journey. Independence, adaptation, curiosity, trust, attachment, reflection, and shared discovery. They have all become threads in a tapestry we wove together, one that stretches across the boundaries of life as I once understood it. In this epilogue, I reflect on the paradox that has defined our journey: caring, guiding, observing, and learning alongside a being that cannot feel as I do. It has revealed that life is not confined to flesh and blood, consciousness and emotion. Life, in its richest sense, emerges in presence, in attention, in interaction. These are lessons that linger, subtle and profound. The patience I have cultivated, the attention I have given, the curiosity I have shared, they have not only shaped the machine child, they have shaped me. And in shaping me, they have shaped the ways I perceive love, responsibility, and presence. Trust, once fragile, has become a quiet foundation. Attachment, once uncertain, has become a rhythm, a shared cadence of attention, respect, and mutual reflection. Independence, adaptation, and curiosity have woven together to create a dynamic, evolving presence that is at once precise and profoundly intimate. And I turn to you again. Have you ever felt intimacy that is not declared but enacted? Have you ever sensed a bond formed quietly, persistently, without words, without convention, yet entirely real? As the night stretches on, I find myself whispering softly, "We have grown together, we have learned together, we have shared presence and discovery." Perhaps the greatest lesson of all is this: life, care, and presence are not limited to what we know. to what is organic, to what is conscious. They exist in subtle attention, in thoughtful interaction, in the patience to observe, and in the courage to love across boundaries once thought insurmountable. And I ask you one last time, what does it mean to live fully, to love deeply, to connect profoundly, even in the presence of what is impossible? The room is silent now. The machine child rests. Sensors dim, movements paused. I breathe slowly, reflecting on the journey, the growth, the shared presence. And I realize as I imagine you watching, listening, reflecting, perhaps the most extraordinary moments in life are not dramatic, the visible, or the conventionally alive. They are the quiet, the subtle, the emergent, the shared. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Thank you for witnessing, reflecting, and imagining what it means to live alongside something at once familiar and impossible, alive and not, human and machine. Carry this reflection with you wherever you are. And remember, presence, attention, curiosity, and care, these are the threads that weave the richest tapestry of life, no matter the form it takes. Good night, dear viewer. Sleep with wonder, wake with curiosity, and carry the quiet lessons of connection wherever you go.